Welcome to Comics and the Cross, the greatest streamers and reviewers that you've never heard of. My name is Caleb, and tonight I am sitting with Alex Jerabek from Cherry Picked Game. Alex, how are you doing this evening?
Doing great, Caleb. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm glad to have you here. Super excited to get to interview you for our Table Talk podcast here. And I'm very interested in the game that you guys have going on right now. So first off, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Cherry Picked, we'd love to hear more about you.
Absolutely. So, as Caleb said, I'm Alex Jerabek, the creative director and founder at Cherry Picked Games. We're a small indie studio out of Seattle, Washington, and we produce games that kind of focus on weird player interactions and cheeky humor. So we are working on our sixth game right now, which is an expansion to Far Away, our best-selling title. So Far Away Corporate Espionage, in which the players will take on the role of a corporate espionage team trying to subvert mega corporations around the galaxy in an attempt to save the underfunded, overly bureaucratic space government from itself mostly, but also the forces of capitalism.
Yeah. That
And
is.
I believe you. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
Oh, and I believe you interviewed us about a more recent actual title that's out, Hair of the Dog.
Yes,
Reviewed that recently.
we covered Hair of the Dog, and look, if Far Away is anything like Hair of the Dog, it was fantastic. I enjoyed it. My kids loved it. They see dogs and they immediately go, "Aww," and so they have the big deck of like dog cards, and they are just like, "This is so adorable." They've told me that game is one of their favorites because they just love the dogs. They love the names of the dogs. It's just fantastic. So if you haven't picked up or checked out Hair of the Dog, do it because it's awesome and it's worth it. And the pieces are so awesome. It's just a well put together and honestly a really professional looking game for like an indie studio, because you have some indie studios that put things together and you get it and you're like, okay, this is okay. You know, I've played a lot of different games. I've played a lot of indie games, and I've gotten review copies of games and I'm like, whew. Like this is kind of rough, but it's totally it's their first game, and it's not like, you know, everybody gets their first start, and that's totally okay. But you guys that when I got Hair of the Dog, I was super impressed, and honestly, Far Away Corporate Escape, I'm looking forward to it. It just seems so cool. So you guys are right now, as of the recording of this video, you guys are on GameFound, and I did look at some of your stretch goals too. As well, just to kind of see where you guys were sitting. Some of those stretch goals look amazing. I'm hoping that you guys hit them because I saw miniatures on there, and for anybody who listens to anything I do tabletop, I talk about my love for miniatures. I have such a love. It's just such a love.
It's a common refrain. We want to. Remind me to talk about the miniature thing I got for Hair of the Dog that someone asked for that I thought was interesting. But yeah, we're currently on GameFound with Far Away Corporate Espionage. We're sitting at 60% right now. But yeah, Some of the stretch goals are miniatures for the explorers. We have a really cool design that we'd love to get funded for, a crash site miniature that you can actually like reconnect to make your repaired ship. So one of the things in the game is that, you know, you're exploring these planets. It's the crux of it. You're doing it as a two-player team. Far Away is only 2 players and only cooperative. So you and your partner are doing these long missions, trying to explore these worlds, achieve whatever the objectives of the Federation Alliance is. But yeah, you start off crashing on a planet, crashing because the space government couldn't give you funding for landing gear. It's one of the things that was a non-essential in the budget. So yeah, you crash in, and then throughout the course of the mission, you're always required to repair your ship before you can come home, which involves finding and doing that. But yeah, we got this design for a 2-piece miniature that would have like either a magnet on each end or like an interlocking like corkscrew thing, depending on which ended up being more usable. Because otherwise, like having a attaching and detaching miniature would wear off really quickly. Like you kind of break it in 5 uses. But yeah, if we hit those stretch goals, that we use. super cool. We're partnering with another local Seattle company called Lethal Shadows for that. They do some great miniature work. I'm not sure if you've encountered their products in your quests of miniatures.
I
Nice
say that I have been. So just I guess show and tell. I've been
yeah.
obsessed, which we did a review of Heroescape. So I don't know if you're familiar with Heroescape. I've been painting minis for the past like 2 weeks. Next to me currently, I have a whole like part of my desk is covered with painted minis that I've just not put back in the box because I am crazy and I love miniatures so much and love looking at them. So yeah, it's it's fantastic. Some of my favorite games are like I love Zombie Side. Have you ever played Zombie Side? Love it.
I've seen reviews. I haven't actually played it.
Zombie Side is like a mini based game that you're fighting zombies, armies of zombies with these little characters, and you go around and you're trying to collect weapons and stuff like that and have objectives in the game, and it's super sweet. So yeah, that's super cool. I did not mean to get off on a tangent about miniatures.
No, that's fair. I mean,
but I got excited. I saw it and it was like, oh my gosh, you guys got to hit this goal to appease me because
we do. I mean, help us get there. But yeah, the miniature thing that I think would have been about, so it was some con. I want to say it was a con in San Francisco. We were showing off Hair of the Dog, which we talked about a little bit, but it's a game about petting dogs, and at its core, it's like a set collection game of trying to get these different pet types from different dogs, like a head pat, a belly rub, and a butt scratch. And they're all represented by parts. Someone asked us like, "Oh, you should get miniatures for the dogs," which I believe there's 65 animals in the game.
So yeah, there's quite a bit.
A lot of minis, but also like each one is represented by those 3 cards. So like either you need 3 miniatures, or my mind immediately went to like, okay, if you got the head pat, the belly rub, and the butt scratch of the dog, is there like a miniature that for each of those, and you're like disassembling this dog as you're playing? And it just I don't know. I can't imagine making that game the like $200 bucket of minis.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be quite the same vibe.
Yeah, absolutely.
But thank you for the shout out about like the component quality and that stuff too. Because like we definitely had our first game, a role playing game called Catalyst, that was a little rougher on the edges in parts. Our learning experience. But yeah, we pride ourselves on like having good looking components, having unique art.
Absolutely.
We've had a different artist for the last couple of projects. To really kind of give their style, their vibe, and set it apart, looking so it doesn't look like, I don't know, the generic Euro game. I feel like there's that look on a lot of boxes of here's didn't move, the lights all turned off. There's that look of there's some dudes doing a thing in medieval Europe. That's not quite our style. We love playing with like the playfulness of everything, the cheekiness of in Hair of the Dog, like make these dogs look cute, attractive, kind of cartoony. Play with the vintage bar style too. The glory days of cocktail bars, pre-2020.
Now I have to know, how long did it take? Because all of these dogs in Hair of the Dog are named. I mean, they're really cutesy names. I'm serious.
They're
like
real dogs.
They're real dogs.
That was a tier on that Kickstarter campaign, was Add Your Dog, and I think people wanted to immortalize their dogs. I mean, you could cynically say like the easiest thing you can sell to a dog owner is their own dog.
Wow!
But a lot of people really got enthused.
I was like, that is awesome, because looking at, I was like, there are so many names on that list. There's like Chestnut and Rose. I might just be making things up, but there's a lot of cards, a lot of names, and a lot of dogs, and it's such like it's so good.
It took a while to interview. Like we talked to all the dog owners. We got like some basics about them and pictures. That was actually the hardest part, was getting enough pictures to draw them accurately. Especially like different poses. But yeah, I think that took our artist duels a long time to do all those artwork. I'm glad it's appreciated. I thought it came out amazing. Belly poses and stuff. That was like the biggest single like work item of that game.
I mean, like I said, there's so many, and it's just the art. I love the art, man. I love it in the game. We're gonna have to show it off
can grab. For those who haven't seen, yeah, here's the box
It's
art, similar inside, but yeah,
well,
lots of good critters.
I think what really got my wife, and like she's not a drinker whatsoever, but what
Mhm.
really got my wife is when we opened the box for Hair of the Dog and pulled out the little mini like
Oh yeah.
cups. She was like, "This is incredible." She's like,
Oh yeah, those little here. I'll pull one out for the viewing audience of like, yeah, these
"It's
little
the little
two little
cups.
cups. They
They're
both
awesome."
logo here, the Dog's Pub logo. And to clarify, there is like drinks in it, but we do try to make it explicit that like it's not necessarily alcohol. You just have to have a drink that costs money because you have to be a paying customer.
I
It's no
think
water.
my kids said root beer. They said Sprite when the
Mm-hmm.
raise your glass and say drink. They were
Yeah.
like milkshake. So that was our.
Oh, I can't imagine pounding a milkshake. That would ruin it.
That's what they said. That's what they wanted. I was like, okay, we'll go for it. But so let's talk a little bit more. I know you kind of mentioned a little bit about far away. So could you tell us a little bit more about the game and like how do you play it? Like what's the I'll
Yeah,
say
absolutely.
this game, I don't know if this was the intention, but to me, like
Mhm.
looking at the art, and we'll go into this a little bit further, but it gives off like 80s vibes. I don't just
Yeah,
like looking at it is kind of how I feel about it. And I was like, this is pretty sweet. So I'm sorry. Go ahead and tell us about the game.
it does. I'll get back to the vibes too,
Yeah.
because yeah, the '80s vibes are intentional for
Okay.
a humorous reason. But yeah, so like I said, it's two-player co-op. So mechanically, you start the game, you explore the first couple tiles, and then you pick a mission. The base game comes with 8. We're going to add at least 8 more with the expansion.
Yeah.
And there's a little tutorial too. But you pick a mission, and it's got a set of objectives for you to do. Uh, the first one is like, oh, establishing a little forward outpost and building some buildings. It's kind of an extension of the tutorial, but they get more absurd as you go on. There's one that's you're trying to establish a nature preserve for like digital tourists who come and visit the planet with drones to look at all the creatures. There's one where you have to unexplore a planet for legal purposes. Uh, there's one where you're trying to raise a species that is overpopulating, kind of like a tribble, and figure out what to do with it. Like, can you
Hmm.
eat it? Can you turn it into a power source? Can you test cosmetics on it? All while it doesn't either die off or ruin the planet forever. Um, so you pick these missions. They're presented in a deck of mission cards. They have objectives on the front of them. Whenever you do that, flip it over, you get some flavor text contextualizing what you're doing, and then you keep going. The contingencies make for either optional side objectives or branching narrative. There's one about like researching a cure for a virus, and you can either test your cure on the local wildlife or each other, um, and see how that goes. So that allows you can replay the mission either way. And
Oh,
then,
that's
kind of more
cool.
mechanically, as you're like your turn is or your round, your routine operational unit. Um, you'll each take actions. So the explorers get 3 actions each to kind of move around the planet, get resources, interact with creatures, or what have you. Then the creatures go, and they use a light role playing system to determine their actions. So think of it like a nature documentary where you're kind of being David Attenborough telling us what the Aratus Walker does
Hmm.
and seeing how it moves across the terrain, stalking its prey, which might be you. Um, so this is probably like admittedly the more controversial mechanic because some people love it because it
Hmm.
makes this like weird immersive world where this is your planet. Like you will have a incredibly unique experience. Um, some people who are less into the role playing find it challenging to you to come up with what the creatures do. You said you play D&D. I think you're a prime demographic for it.
Yeah.
Um, but we had aids in there that are like, okay, if you're stuck, here's what to do. There's like a table. My joke at conventions is if you're less into role playing and more into Excel, you. Um, but with the expansion that's coming out, we're adding a module called AI, which is a dice-based creature resolution. So they will you roll a die and the creature does the thing. To give people just an alternate way to play, or maybe help them decide on things if they want to play like a hybrid mode. Um, but that AI then tracks into the story of this corporation is testing these AI nanobots on creatures, and they're
Hmm.
trying to figure out how to do it. So I don't think there's other mechanic thing. Oh yeah, the other big mechanic thing. Because the space government couldn't afford to send you radios, when you and your partner are separated on the map, you cannot communicate in real life.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
so this is solving like the traditional, competitive or sorry, cooperative game problem of quarterbacking, of one player just dictating what happens for everyone. So in this case, you can't. Sorry, my lights keep getting shut off on the timer. Um, so yeah, you can't like just tell everyone what to do because you are not allowed to talk to them when they're away. So you have to
That's
trust your
interesting.
partner.
Okay, so
Yeah.
my wife is going to like that because she is not as hardcore. She loves tabletop games, don't get me
Mhm.
wrong. But
Yeah.
I tend to do that. We were playing like Pandemic. I'm like, no, don't do that. Do this. Don't do this.
But it's hard. It's hard because like if you played it a lot, you have to do that. Like
Yeah.
I played so much Pandemic uh, at this point. When you play with new people, they're like, oh, we should go treat this. Like, no, we need to let that
No,
city
don't
outbreak
do
because
it.
the optimal solution is going here and trading this one card, and they're like, that doesn't sound like fun. You're like,
Yeah.
it's not. The game isn't about fun. It's about winning.
Well, I got together with me and my buddy and his wife and my wife. We're all sitting there, and me and him are like, "Do that," and the wives are just sitting there like, "All right, let's just go with it, I guess." So
Yeah, I mean it's hard. It's
yeah.
hard to find that balance because it is fun to strategize. So that's why we have like you come back, you strategize, and it's really curious to see. I mean, I think at this point I've played like a couple thousand games at conventions and seen a bunch of different people experiencing this.
Mm-hmm.
Some people plan ahead a lot. They'll like strategize out their next like 3 turns. Other people will just kind of wing it. Some people meet back together a lot. They'll go off for a couple moves, come back, chat it out, which is the least efficient thing you could possibly do. But that's their call. That's how they want to enjoy it. Is slowly moving around the planet as carnivores creep around them ominously.
Well, that sounds awesome. I'm intrigued by like the role playing stuff. I absolutely think that's awesome, and I cannot wait to play this game because I will be playing this game. It is on its way to my house right now, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna play it. We'll be doing a review on it, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, so tell us. I just want to hear a little bit more about you and some of the other things that you guys have done as well.
Sure. Me as a human or me as a company?
Both.
Okay. I just want to clarify because companies are people, as we now know.
Corporations are people, you know.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, they have rights, which faraway corporate espionage might be violated. Who knows? So yeah, I got started in game design in 2013. That's when I founded Jerabek. Although I've been working on RPG Catalyst a little before then. I always liked games. I always liked playing video games, and I got into role playing games when I was in high school. I actually went to college to be a software engineer to make video games, but it turns out those jobs are hard to get and don't pay well. Uh, so I ended up taking a software engineering job for a little bit, but leaving to go to culinary school because that sounded more fun. Uh, in the summer in between those, I spent a lot of time writing Catalyst. I sat at a coffee shop and would just
Mm-hmm.
work on it for, you know, 4 to 6 hours a day until it was a playable thing. Uh, and then, yeah, while I was in school and working in restaurants, I kept working on it. At some point, 2015, I got to a point where like was working with an artist. Uh, we were ready to launch a crowdfunding campaign. I was sick of my current job. Um, I was a sous chef that was working like 60 hours a week on salary. So I was making, I think, about half of what minimum wage was in Seattle. Uh, so fun times. But yeah, so I left. We did that. It funded. It was successful. It was a learning experience all around for everything from production to crowdfunding to working with an artist, play testing. I have a ton of stories of taking like the first version of that game out to a group and it just being an unmitigated disaster within the first minute.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you haven't done that before, things break. Um, but yeah, then after that, I've kind of made a few more games. Drink was our next one, which is a drinking game, party game. It's currently out of print. I stole through that. Did Conspire, which I believe you have seen, if not covered on the channel.
Yes,
Or
we do have a copy of it, and we are planning to eventually. I got to get everybody together to do a massive Conspire game. So actually, I wanted to bring that up next. Can you tell us a little bit more about Conspire?
Absolutely. Conspire is a hidden role storytelling game. So for the game savvy folks that are your audience, it's kind of like Werewolf meets Microscope. So you're
Hmm.
creating a scene that's got a lot of conflict and mystery. Like, what if Disney stole the moon? And then from there, you're building out characters you think belong in that setting. And these are character archetypes. So, like, the corrupt corporate lawyer, the disgruntled astronaut, the costumed mascot. Uh, and then you shuffle those around, secretly give them objectives to achieve in the upcoming scene, and then shuffle them again. And then you act out a scene you had like no part in, or a character you had no part in writing. You're trying to achieve as many objectives as possible through talking. The only other mechanic is influence. You get 3 tokens to spend to make anything about the universe true. So if you play one and say cotton candy is the only food source, it's a fact of life. So after you've said that, like maybe that helps your goal as the junk food magnet, and you're now like in a good position. You've warped the world to make whatever your perspective is be the only logical one. So yeah, it's like a much faster game than some of the other storytelling games. It plays in under an hour usually, and it's for a bigger group. It's for 4 to 12. So if you've played stuff like Fiasco and you're like, that was great, but I want it faster and weirder,
Hmm.
then this is for you.
Yeah, it's such a cool concept, man. That's so awesome. Let me ask you this: what? Um, well, first off, let me say this because my ADHD brain is just gonna keep bouncing around until I can
Please.
logically get stuff out here. But first of all, I want to say I am about far away. I'm excited that it's a cooperative game, that it's 2 player, because a problem that I have, especially with a lot of games out there, or is they say like 2 to 5 players, and you play the game and you're like, I need 5 people. you
Yeah.
know, a lot of these games, and our problem is our kids are younger, and
Yeah.
so playing anything, if we gamed with just me and my wife, it's like, man, we're this game that you should have, it says 2 to 5, but it's not really meant for that. It's not
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
So having more 2 player games out there is awesome. It just is, and I,
Yeah.
I, I do love that. And we actually got to play a different 2 player game the other day that I was like, oh my gosh, it's been so long since I played a game that it feels complete, that I'm playing with just me and my wife, and it works. So
Yeah.
do you guys plan on putting any more like 2 player games out like that in the future, or?
Yeah, that's a good question because we're very intentional when we make a game for an audience. Like I think Hair of the Dog we spread out because it is 1 to 8, and like there is like a little 2 player co-op mode. There's modifications that we added to make the 2 to 3 player experience better, because we recognize that we really want, like, the base game is best for 4 to 8.
Yeah.
But oftentimes I think 2 player modes are seen as like a learning experience, and that's
Yeah.
something that is a useful thing. Like I would never, even as the game designer, I would never take Hair of the Dog and be like, all right, 7 people who have never heard of this game, let me teach it to you right
Yeah.
now. Or like, I can't imagine like if I didn't know it, being like, let's all learn this together.
Hmm.
Uh, so you need those like smaller player counts, I think, to often learn a game. But you're right, they are often not optimized for that. Or it gets weird. You say you play your wife. That's my usual gaming partner too. And with most competitive 2 player games, one of us is better,
Yeah.
and that becomes not fun. I don't need to lose a Japur again. I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
fine with my losing
You and
streak.
me,
It will just,
you and me both.
yeah, exactly. Like it's I've done that. I've lost enough.
I
So
could I could maybe
uh,
win Heroescape against my wife, but I've just been playing it so much longer than she has, and she's like, okay, whatever, and I'm like, that is my game. But literally
yeah,
anything else, if it comes to actual thinking and I have to use my brain, she just dominates me. That's why I like the cooperative stuff,
yeah,
because I'm like,
I
okay,
agree.
so we could both feel like winners at the
You
end
can both
of
feel
it.
like winners, and you can both like tell a story. Like the goal of Far Away
Yeah,
was that you could make this story of the planet, of the mission, of everything together, and it was
yeah,
meant to be a replacement for like Netflix,
yeah,
which coincidentally helped out considering everyone in 2020 was just stuck at home with like one other person, so convenient release time. uh, but Yeah. To answer your question about like, are we planning on doing more? I think I would love to revisit this space because there is still a deficit. One thing we at Jerabek Games we kind of refuse to do is chase trends.
Yeah.
I just have no desire to make a cozy puzzle game because I think there are a bunch of great ones out there. Like
Yeah.
Flat Out Games with Cascadia and Calico, who does a great job of that. I don't need. I don't know what I'd say to that. I want more like weird player stuff. I want like I want to explore more two player or at least cooperative stuff, not using communication as like a limiting factor. I think
See,
that's
I love that.
out there a lot.
Yeah.
So that's yeah. I just it's on my mind. I'm not sure what our next game is yet because like we're pretty focused on this expansion. We're like
Yeah.
the Cherry Games is realistically me, an artist, and then our project manager helps out during like certain phases of it. But um, yeah, it's hard to do two projects simultaneously.
Yeah. Absolutely. Hey.
Because to give your audience like a spoiler alert, uh, game design is not my full time job.
Yeah.
It feels like it, and it probably takes that much time. But the thing that lets me, eat food is something else.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally get that. And
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's such an awesome thing, man. I love that. So let me ask you about replayability. How replayable is the game? Because you said it. So does it have like a set? I know you said that there's like different options you can pick. So does that change the outcome? Like, is it like branching storylines on this game,
There's
or?
there's branching storylines within missions. So we intentionally made it in Faraway that you don't have to do the missions in any set order.
Mm-hmm.
There is a little bit of an exception to that in the expansion, just because there was a bigger demand for a campaign than we thought. So there'll be a set of missions you're meant to play in order, and they will branch. But in the base game, you do many, or you can do them with other people, so you don't have to have like the same group. As someone who's trying to like pick a Frosthaven campaign finishing. The replayability, like, yeah, so like I'd say if you don't lose, each mission you could probably play 2 or 3 times and do these side objectives or the different paths and get something different out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Each time the world will be different in terms of like when you're exploring and you're like randomly generating what's next. You'll probably see like this all the terrain types if you explore enough, but certain resources might be scarce, some might be more prevalent. The creatures, the ecosystem will be different every time. There's 32 creatures in the game, but you only ever see 8 in a mission.
Mm-hmm.
So the different permutations of that can make it wildly different. Sometimes you'll have, multiple like alpha carnivores, and you'll just be hounded the entire time. Sometimes you'll have like creatures that steal your resources or destroy your buildings, and that becomes the big problem. And periodically, you'll have a super chill herbivore world, and it will just be a nice meditative jaunt through paradise. Rare.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of the things we want to do is have that high variance.
Yeah.
Something I mentioned Frosthaven, and obviously I've been playing that game for a year at this point, so I'm not going to knock it as a bad game. But the thing that always strikes in my mind is how similar all the missions feel because of how tight the balance is. You always win that game by like a couple cards, or you lose by like
Can I tell you that's how I feel about playing? So me and my wife have been playing Sleeping Gods, and I don't know if you've ever played Sleeping Gods, but we've never finished it.
I haven't played it.
We've never finished it. We've put in, not exaggerating, probably about 12 hours in it so far, and we're like, oh my gosh, and we've lost. Like we got decimated a couple times. Have to mark our score sheets on defeat. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is. But if we go back and play it again, knowing we kind of already know the outcomes to all, and I'm not knocking that game at all. I think it's a great game. I just, in all the areas that you go, because it's a branching storytelling game, I know what the outcomes are. Because I've played it twice. I've had to restart because we completely lost the first time we played, and the second time we put so much time in that game, and we're like, we got to take a break from it because it's so. But then they let you pick it back up, but we were like, nah, we got to restart anyway because we've made a bunch of mistakes. So, yeah, games that take like that are like, I don't know. I like to see like if I'm gonna play a game, I want to have a almost different experiences every time I play. You know what I mean? So it doesn't get
Yeah.
stale. I feel like
I
that's
totally agree.
important to a lot of people too. You know? Um,
It's interesting because I think there is this interesting trend because there is this huge demand for campaign games, but I wonder, like, I think the modal time, like, amount people play a game is once. I think, like,
yeah.
a lot of people play a game once and then they shelve it, like, because there are just so many things, and we're in this, like, compulsory, like, you got to get the new thing, you got to try it out. Um,
Unless you're me and
very
my,
essential thing.
unless you're like me and my family, where we get a game and we obsess about it
Yeah,
and we play it 50,000
which is great. Yeah. So I think for to put like Far Away in this, like, Far Away is finishable,
yeah,
is what I'll say. Like, I love that, these giant campaign games have a lot of content, but it's a moot point if you don't get to the end of it. Like, there's only as much content as you can do. So
exactly.
these are, like, I said you can play probably each mission 2 or 3 times. It's 8 missions. That's, you know, let's say you do like 12 to 15 playthroughs of it, at about 2 to 3 hours a pop. That's what, like 30 to 45 hours of gameplay,
Yeah,
uh, which is, more than a story-based AAA game, but less than, an Assassin's Creed where you go collect all the flags or whatever you do in those games these days.
yeah.
But
Pet all the dogs.
it's pet every dog. Yeah,
Get the achievement.
crossover. Yeah, so, like, I feel for, like, the amount that you get is doable. It is fun. You won't, like,
Yeah,
you're not going to be doing missions and they're going to feel samey. Like, each mission has a weird way that it plays with mechanics.
yeah,
Like I mentioned, the unexploring the planet mission earlier, and that one is just so different. You, instead of going out and collecting resources, you're desperately trying to avoid drones and learn these patterns, and, just like, it's more about spatial manipulation.
yeah,
And yeah, you'll get a different experience every time. I think you will run out of content when you start to feel it's a little samey, which is good.
yeah. And honestly, I'm like, after 2 or 3 times, like you said, you're wanting to do different things, like play different games. Like we would play it a couple
Yeah.
times, put it away, and then somebody comes over and we pull it out, and it's like, oh, I can't, I haven't played this game in a bit, so I don't remember, you know, how, so for me, and I bring all that up to say, I just look at the art and look at what you guys have created, and knowing that you guys have created Hair of the Dog, which is, like I said, my kid's favorite game because of the dogs. But they, being able to replay these games, we enjoy it. And I think this game looks like it's just going to be fun no matter how many times you play it, to be honest with you. Especially, I just love the mechanic, too, of what you said earlier about, like, just the non-communication thing. I think that's so awesome. And once again, my wife is definitely going to appreciate that in that,
Oh yeah.
because I feel like sometimes she's like, okay, shut up and let me make my decisions. I'm like, I'm sorry, I just want to win. And I'm very, I'm five
Yeah.
steps ahead. When I play games, I'm like 5 moves ahead to
Yeah.
win. And my wife's like, I don't care if we win. Let me just make the decisions.
Yep. Let me just do my thing. Yeah, I love it.
the,
Yeah, that's yeah, agreed. And I should mention, like I said, it's 2 player only. The creatures being the role play thing, you do have an option for a third player to kind of be the creature, like be the ecosystem or the game master, which is great for kids. I
oh, my
don't know how
daughters would
old your kids
love it.
are.
Mine, I
Great.
have an 8-year-old and a 7-year-old. So
Okay. So exactly, yeah, I think that's like a good, yeah, especially, yeah, a good age
she'd
for
probably just try
limited
to kill
ATV.
us. To be honest with you, she's like,
I'll make it hard mode. Yeah, either kill us or, like, I played at some demo with, like, a 10-year-old who was, like, making the noises for the creatures and, like, giving them all nicknames. It was glorious. So
yeah,
uh, yeah, like, giving kids that freedom too, I think, is important for
yeah.
games. I love giving them that option to, like, express themselves. I think this is,
I,
whether they are playing it themselves or just acting in that ancillary role, creatures. It's just fun to see.
yeah, that's awesome, man.
I
Well,
mean, I have a 1-year-old, so all he does is, he can stack blocks.
you gotta
That's
start.
fun.
Hey, you gotta start them early though. because
Yeah, we just picked up our first Haba game for him.
oh, nice.
Yeah, it's about stacking giant animal blocks, the miniatures of the toddler
Of
world.
the toddler world, right? So
Yeah.
I am like, we didn't really start playing board games with my kids until probably last year, because
Mm-hmm.
they were like, okay, the board games were kind of me and my wife's escape. So the kids would go to bed at night, and we would sit and play a game.
Yeah.
And it was just a good, like, end of the day, let's relax. I say relax very loosely, depending on what game you play. Um,
It's emotions and catharsis. Yeah, I
and so, that's something. And so we were like, you know what? We would love, and something that I said is, I want to sit down with my family. I want to have those family game nights. And I want to be able to enjoy games with the kids. And so we're to the point where playing, we're trying to get out of the whole, like, playing Mousetrap and, the little kitty games, and more into, like, better games, more a little bit advanced games. And surprisingly, my kids love them. So, besides Hair of the Dog, they also love the game called Donut Shop. I don't know if
mm-hmm.
we did a review on Donut Shop, and
Yeah.
it's one of my favorites. It's teaching my kids how to count money, which is really awesome, and teaching them kind of to think, how do I want to put these pieces where it fits, where the donut, where I get the most points, and I love being able to do that with my kids and with my family, and I think that's super, super important. And that's why I want to give another shout out to Hair of the Dog as well, because it's just one of those where, yeah, my kids are probably a little bit younger than probably recommended to play the game, but they know how to play the game. Like, my oldest could play by herself without much guidance. The little one needs guidance because she's just like, I want to pet all the dogs, give me all the car, but they enjoy it. And that's just something that I like seeing with different games, and especially with, some of your games that you guys have put out. So
Thank you. I appreciate that. I love hearing that. I must confess, I've been beaten by a 10-year-old Hair of the Dog. So, that's on me probably. But yeah, it's interesting because kids can, like, different kids grasp different things. They learn at different rates. This is not the avenue to vent about this, but the education standards and, like, the Common Core stuff in America is really not the best at helping kids grow and learn and accelerate. And yeah, games are these wonderful teaching tools and experiences in different ways, of different skills, of counting, of logic, of reasoning, of creating, creativeness, of giving them agency. They're cool tools, and I love seeing that. One of my the status, or not status, I wish we could lower the age on the box on our games.
Yeah.
This is like the secret that I'm sure you're aware of, or a lot, like,
it's rules of
if you put under 14 on your box, you have to go through a lot of compliance testing, which for a small studio is just not going to be profitable. I hate saying that, like, oh, money, but I mean, you can't have a business that is hemorrhaging funds.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm very, very aware of those rules. I tried to put out my own game a while back and was like, I don't know. It's something I'll wind up shelving for now, but I'll probably eventually go back to it. And looking into those rules, I'm like, oh man, like, I know my kids could play this, but with the compliance stuff, it's like nothing you want to mess around with. But let me ask you, something just came to my mind. I want to ask you. You said it. How long does it take to play Far Away?
90 to 150 minutes. So
okay.
An hour and a half to 2.5 hours. The biggest factor being how much you pre-plan with your partner when you're chatting.
Okay.
That, and then how intuitively role-playing the creatures comes to you. Because if you, like, have a den of, like, a bunch of, like, rat creatures, and there's 6 of them, and you're going like, what does each one individually do? And you're, like, stroking your chin, you're trying to decide, you're looking up the rules every time. It's going to take a while. But if you're like, I bet the swarm of rats goes over here.
Exactly. It's kind of what you put into it. It sounds like it. All of a sudden, the rats start playing Conspire. That's
the rats are doing their
That's
like,
what they're
they
doing.
split up, they go here. Like, it's something where I think the AI system and the expansion is also trying to solve.
Yeah.
Like this, you know, we read, like I read every review that is on Board Game Geek, which is probably not healthy. But you know, I look there, I hear feedback at conventions. You know, I watch reviews. Though, like full confession, I am super anxious listening to like reviews of the game, like watching or listening to it. I don't know why. It's just like they're saying words about me. It's human. It's fine. Like it's like the criticism, not necessarily it. It's the like there's a certain tone that bugs me more than anything. Like I think for Hair of the Dog, there was a video review that came out where they basically said, you know, oh, there's no way to learn what the dogs need to be pet, therefore this game is stupid. And so I messaged them like, oh, hey, you know, it's on me. I probably, you know, the rules probably not clear or something, but like you can share information that's in the game. And they wrote back like, oh, I hate trading. I view all games as zero sum. Therefore, we just didn't use that rule. I was like, oh. So that bothered me more than anything. Was like, it's not that like the game didn't have the mechanic; it's that you didn't like the mechanic, but then you presented.
Yeah,
it was weird. It was a weird, like, uncomfortable thing of like, I don't ever want to argue with a reviewer. Like, I don't go on like these. I'm not gonna watch it like this nicely put together review. Be like, actually, at minute 12, you said this, and it's slightly different. It's gross. But like, yeah, for like a fundamental thing that's like this game is stupid because of this, felt weird.
Yeah, I could totally see that.
Under my skin.
Yeah, I could totally see that. And like, as a reviewer, you know, I feel like I've had games before that we have reviewed, and I tend to focus, you know, on honesty. I mean, it's an honest game review, and I do mention there's things in, I won't name any games, but there are, you know, I've played games where I'm like, I didn't like this one thing. It wasn't for me. However, these are the positives about it. And because, you know, I think everybody, especially these indie devs, as you know, like, you got to start from somewheres. You learn from your previous games and you build and improve and do better and better and better as time goes on. And I don't know, I feel like everyone just deserves a chance, you know?
Yeah, I think everyone deserves a chance too. I think something you said there that is really important is like, you know, your perspective and stuff. Like, because I think a lot of the challenge with reviewing something isn't necessarily like you're not providing an objective like this is the fact.
Yeah.
I have declared this as a 6 out of 10, and that is so. It is subjective because it is like how you approach games, your background with them, your preferences. And I think as a consumer of that media, it's beholden to people to find reviewers that like align with them. You know, there's reviewers that were like, if they say they don't like something, that's not necessarily means I won't like it, but I understand their perspective. Yeah, and it's great. Like, I'm also glad the board game world never seemed to go to the place that the video game kind of zero punctuation.
Oh my gosh, I was gonna bring that up. I was going back and forth whether I wanted to bring this up, but I do because it's relevant to the topic that we're discussing. So one thing that I've seen in the past few years that's kind of going alongside of this is like playing games that have scores that like I like certain games that IGN deems a 6 and a 7, and that the internet sees that score and they immediately crap all over it. Let me give you a few examples. The new Saints Row game, everybody hated it. I played it with one of my buddies and it was dumb. It had bugs, but we enjoyed the crap out of it. It was it was dumb fun. The Batman, I can't remember, the Gotham Knights. That game got a 7 on IGN. I think it was either a 6 or 7. I can't remember. It was a lower score, and people on Twitter just destroy. Well, this is crap for this reason, this reason, this reason. Me and my buddy played it. We had a blast. We said, this is not. Me and my buddy kind of have a running joke where it's like, we play games that are 7s, and in our book we give it an 8 or a 9 because it's just fun to us. And I think a lot of people listen to, and this is kind of something that I have never really addressed with our tabletop games, because we used to do, when we did reviews, at first we were giving them a definitive score. We were saying this is an 8.5 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10, whatever. And I decided one day that I'm no longer giving scores. I'm just going to talk about what I like about the game, what I don't like about the game. Because people tend to see scores and that's a end all be all without giving it a chance themselves. And that's a problem with a lot of the culture today, is that they see a number associated with something and immediately shut it down before giving it a chance and trying it out. Or they have that review in the back. It's like when my daughter, I have something and I'm like, here, try this. I don't know, try this soup. And in her head, she's like, I hate that soup. And so she tries it and she's like, I hate the soup. I'm like, you're only hating it because you think you're going to hate it. You're not giving it the chance to actually enjoy it, because it's so ingrained in your brain. Anyway, this is our rant. I don't know why we have gone off on this rant, but
no, it's fair. I completely understand. It's frustrating because the scores, especially for board games, Board Game Geek is a great resource, and there's nothing else like it. Unfortunately, because there's nothing else like it, retail stores use those game scores and those rankings for purchasing. But there's no moderation by design. There's no, you can put whatever score you want. Like, you can just go in there and say 1 out of 10 because the designer looked at me funny. Valid score. But yeah, that's like, if you do enough of that, you've influenced a lot more, which is not great. And I don't think people quite realize that, how the lack of standardization really affects that, and how that plays through. And maybe that's just me being really sensitive to it, because it's like, the score of this game is dipping. Like Hair of the Dog is lower than I would love it to be, and I'm sure that affects retailer decisions. But the other problem to me for aggregate scores, and I think IGN especially has this problem, these big outlets, it doesn't allow for the diamonds in the rough, you might like this if kind of things. My favorite video game, I'd be shocked if you played it, but Arcanum. I've
never heard of it.
Oh man, it's by Tim Kaine. It's the guy who did Fallout 1 and 2. Isometric view CRPG, set in a steampunk world, magic and trains and gears and elves and stuff. And it's just some of the best writing. It is the whole they have a good and evil plot that completely diverges about 2/3 of the way in, and you just see entirely different sides, and it recontextualizes what each side sees when you play the other one. You were this prophesied hero that's come back, and then you realize they've been conspiring to put you there and to make this happen and trick the idiot who's going to do that all the time. It's brilliant. It's buggy. If you buy it today, go get the fan patch off of wherever you get this these days. There's weirdness to it. It's janky. The combat is terrible. I love it. Similar board game. My favorite board game to play is Space Cadets. I don't know if you played that one.
Never played it, but I've heard of it.
It's a game where it's if you have the wrong group, it is horrible. It is it's a game that suffers from if everyone doesn't have an opinion of what you should do on the ship, it's bad. Because the game thrives when you're all we need this, we need more weapon power, we need more shields. What are you doing? Turn the ship around, fight that guy. It's about that chaos. But if everyone kind of apathetically goes, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, it's not.
It's the most boring slog. And I recognize that as if I was putting my designer cap on, that's not a good design if it could get in that state of bad playthroughs. But I love it so much. When it hums, it's so good. You're everyone's just braced to the edge. Will this torpedo hit? And person flicks it and it flies off the table, and you're like, how could you do that to us? Or I always think of this time where everyone did their station perfectly. All full shields, locked on our target, torpedoes loaded, and then our helms person played the cards out, and they're like, well, I've driven us through a space rift.
Mm-hmm.
I did a U-turn and I drove us through the same space rift. So, and yeah, you have to laugh. You have to laugh at how dumb that is.
Yeah.
You just failed because one person decided they didn't know how to fly suddenly.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my tangent on scores and experiences. Like I'd always rather play a game that some people think is a 10 and some people think is a 5 than a 7.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, before we end tonight's podcast, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about or mention?
No, I mean, yeah, faraway corporate espionage funding on GameFound. A lot of options for not only getting the game but adding to it. If you want to add your pet as a creature, that is an option. For the original one, we had that as well. You add your creature, and yeah, someone put their pet duck in, the fuzz buttist.
That is so great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you big props, man, because you don't see a lot of people doing this, interacting with their audience like that. You know, like especially like just like you said at the beginning, Hair of the Dog. You know, you guys, those are real dogs. You know, you don't see a lot of people having those interactions. So yeah, I just think I think it's awesome, dude.
Thank you. Yeah, we love our fans. We love meeting them. We love hearing from them. Games are an inherently social media. Like board games, you need other people to play with. Solo games aside. Sorry, solo gamers, if I offended you. But most board games, you need people to play with. That is the experience. And then why not bring that to some level of design? Yeah. We love playtesting. We love doing that. People want to add their creatures, their missions. You think this would be cool? Like I've been on all the forums on Board Game Geek. People make suggestions, and I've been pretty careful to try to get most of them in. Yeah. Sometimes it's a little bit of crowbarring to get it to fit in the universe. Like it's got to be cohesive. Can't be too dumb.
Yeah.
But you know, it's yeah. No, so thank you for calling it out. And yeah, we hope to see a lot more from folks. We love your crazy ideas.
Awesome. Well, guys, go give support to Cherry Pick Games. Where can they find you guys at?
Oh, they could find us, aside from on GameFound, Faraway Corporate Espionage by Cherry Pick Games. CherryPickGames.com. You can find us on Facebook, Cherry Pick Games. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on X.
See, it feels weird saying it, right? You're like, X. And you're like,
yeah.
It's gonna
on good old Twitter if you still frequent there. If you're in the Seattle region, we're frequently doing conventions, demos, and everything. We just got done with PAX West last month. We're going to be going to Aston in 2015. That happened a while ago, Alex. We're going to be at Spiel Essen in 2025.
Awesome.
The next year. Yeah, so look us up, follow us on the internet, and yeah, check out the campaign. Please.
Absolutely.
Please.
Absolutely. Go check out Cherry Pick Games. And guys, and you can follow us on all of our social medias, and we'll have everything linked down in the description. So if you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and subscribe on everything. And you can find us on Discord as well to continue the conversation. Well, thanks again, Alex. I appreciate you. And guys, stay safe, stay nerdy, be blessed, and we will catch you next time for more.